Welcome to Sea View Circle. This is our recap podcast where we review our favorite TV shows and movies of the past, present, and possibly the future, all in service to our end goal of determining just how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is. And along the way, we also kind of talk about, vintage fashions and style and pop culture moments of which the show we're covering currently, Yellowjackets, is chock full of. So currently, what have we been covering?
Yellowjackets.
Season 3.
Season 3. We just started.
Yes.
We've done a recap for episode 1 and 2.
Yep.
And last night, very late, was the episode 3.
Season 3 drop. This
Yep.
episode is called Them's the Breaks. But before we get into that, we would like to reveal some of your poll results from previous episodes. So let's do that first. This is going back to last week. We had the 2 episodes, right? 1 and 2. And the question posed was, what will the Yellowjackets Season 3 body count be? How many people are going to die this season, right? So these are the results appearing on your screen right now. You will see that the majority believe that we will lose 2 to 3 of our cast members, the remaining Yellowjackets that are out there. Now, I've been doing a lot of research this week because we have a special bonus episode that will be coming out where we are going to dissect the extra jackets, those people in the background, episode by episode. And at this point, there aren't that many bodies left, to be honest. I mean, according to what they're showing to us. Now, there should be a lot more if you really do the research. So if we lose 2 to 3 people, we're going to be down quite a bit.
Yeah,
right?
but as you know that they can give a little bit more mileage to some of the extras who haven't really done much in the past.
And we have to get to a point where there are no survivors left except for the adults, right? So we are going to have to start losing some of these bodies. Okay, now, we also had a poll from our Season 2 recap. That was kind of like our favorite things from Season 2. The question was, after watching Yellowjackets Season 2, were you Team Lottie or Team Natalie? And I would say from I don't know how the ratio works, but I would say Team Natalie definitely won the hearts of at least our viewers, and by quite a big margin. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm okay with it, but I gotta say, I always have a little soft spot for like real crazy people, and I feel like Lottie
and cult leaders
too. I have a soft spot. I'm sorry. Obviously, we're going to talk about the next episode too, but just seeing this progression of Lottie, I feel like she's getting crazier, and so I love it.
It's so much fun to see Simone Kessel in this adult role, like outside of the intentional community, because in a way you're kind of getting to see her without any guardrails. You know what I mean? She is just on the loose.
She's on the loose.
And it's fun to watch.
Yeah.
But we do miss Juliette Lewis, don't you? Of course.
And I miss, Nicole Maines.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Lisa.
Lisa.
Yeah.
Lisa. I like her.
I hope
she'll come back.
At least in reference, Hopefully Lottie will at least reference her once. Now, let's get into the episode, right? This is Them's the Breaks. What do you think that's in reference to there, Doug?
Well, I think it could be in reference to a song.
Okay.
And also possibly a scene in
yeah,
the
I think
show
so.
that happens.
I think so.
But I mean, I think of it, isn't there a song, Them's the Breaks?
Yeah, something like, these are the breaks.
These are the breaks.
I think the actual euphemism originally comes from billiards. When you break the ball, break the cue balls at the beginning.
Cue balls.
Them's the breaks. Them's the breaks.
Oh, okay.
Whatever that is, that's where the balls go.
Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, maybe we'll have to Google that one and find out. I could do it right now if you'd like on the phone, but we won't go there.
All right, so who's our team here for this episode?
So the writing team on this episode are Ashley Lyle, Bart Nickerson, and Jonathan Lisco.
I think they did the first episode of this season as well.
Yeah, I think they did the first one. And then the director's also Jonathan Lisco.
Okay.
The IMDb synopsis is a hostile reunion ignites chaos among former teammates, while Lottie's behavior gives Callie unexpected insights into her mom's dark history. Meanwhile, Ty and Van face consequences for their past action.
Yes.
So the first thing we hear is the music. It's
the intro
to I'm Too Sexy.
Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy, which was kind of like a cultural phenomenon back in the day because it was so ridiculous. It was so kitschy to see these men wearing they're shirtless or they're wearing mesh or whatever.
You know, they were from London. They were huge there.
Okay.
So it was like a big deal. But like, I think what happened is, I think it happened much earlier in the UK.
Oh,
like,
probably.
I
yeah.
think it was like in probably 91 or 92.
Yeah,
but
that's
anyway,
when it hit here. That's when it hit
Well,
here.
I guess so.
But it was so big that, you know, here Mari is in the cave in the opening sequence here, and she's stuck in this cave with Coach Ben. She's saying, "I'm too sexy for this cave. I'm too sexy for these rocks. I'm too sexy to be murdered." And she's not wrong. She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. I know she's worried, but I mean, you would be worried too if you were tied up.
Yeah.
In a cave.
Yeah.
But
so I think what she's doing here is she's trying to come up with any way she can to obviously distract Coach Ben or, you know, to break out of here. So the first tactic she uses is like overt flattery. She says that she's always had a secret crush on him. She lets it slip. But my question to you is, did she let that slip or she did it on purpose?
no,
right?
I think she did it on purpose, but it was very obvious that at this point she doesn't know that Coach is gay.
Right.
But she's really trying hard, and she says something like, "I told everybody that you had raging gonorrhea so that they wouldn't want to touch you, so I could have you all to myself."
Less competition.
Less competition.
She says that she called him, I don't know, something coaches or like some pathetic thing. And then he's like, "Why did you do that if you were attracted to me?" And she said, "Oh, that's because I knew you'd give me detention. I could spend more time with you."
Yeah, and then she slithers up to him.
Yeah.
And she tries to put her leg over his leg.
And that's when he says,
He's like, "I'm gay, hello." So I thought it was cool because, you know, in the past, obviously he was very guarded about his sexuality. But now, I mean, he's been in this cave for a while.
Right.
All bets are off.
He's really questioning things, and I think that this was a really great, I don't know if it was this scene or the next scene, was a really great opportunity for Steven Kruger to show more of his acting ability, because up until now, he's just been like the disapproving older guy who has to like damper all the younger kids' fun, you know? So this was a moment for him to actually like take a bite into a scene, and he talks about how he doesn't understand how his life got to this, right?
Oh yeah, because he was saying something about like he used to be normal.
Yeah,
and then he's
he
now
says, "I'm a normal guy. I go to 7-Eleven.
Go to 7-Eleven and eat taquitos or something like that."
He went to go see the Dave Matthews Band 3 times, even though he wasn't so sure that he even liked them. They were a big band in the 90s.
I know who they are. I know who they are.
He even mentioned something which I thought was really, really funny, very much something that you and I hits to you and I, is that he said that he ended up as a coach of a soccer team because at some point he tore his ACL.
I know. As soon as I heard that, I was like, now this is something that is very personal to Brady and I.
Not that we ever tore our ACL.
I never tore my ACL.
But we didn't even know what an ACL was until...
Yeah, we did this job in the early 2000s for about 3 months where we were doing...
It was a summer. It was like a it was like a Yellowjackets summer.
It was a Yellowjackets summer. It was done in upstate New York or all like outside, like
mostly
Westchester.
Mostly at Marriott's.
Yeah, Westchester, Poughkeepsie. But we would do these medical...
it was continuing education for doctors that was mandated by the insurance company, right, for the doctor. So it was a way to get them to kind of learn about the latest in whatever, and then also to kind of talk through certain ways of handling situations.
Yeah,
right?
and with that, they had these terrible
industrial
videos that were, poorly acted. And of course, we watched them like 25 times. So the point you're like, you know it.
You know the script,
backwards
right?
and forwards. Yeah. But there was this whole thing about this kid going like, you tore your ACL. And they're like, not the ACL, Mom. So I love that. That was just very personal.
Yeah. So Mari is trying anything she can to get on his good side, and then when she sees it's not working, he's gay, she spots the bear spray on his back pocket or whatever. She takes it and she sprays Coach Ben, and then he sprays her back.
Yeah. So then they're both incapacitated. So of course it cuts, and then it comes back to where he's putting water on her eyes. I guess he's already put water on his
Have they already been eating bat? I think they've already been eating.
They were eating the juicy bat at the beginning.
Right, the juicy bat, which, think of it this way, Mari.
Baby.
It's basically a Cornish hen had a baby with a demon.
I think
have you ever eaten a bat before?
No, I have not tried bat.
How about a Cornish hen?
I think I have had a Cornish hen. I've also had kangaroo sausage at one point.
Ooh, how was that?
It was pretty good.
Chewy?
It was a little gamey, but I was on a pizza, so wasn't. I mean, you can't.
Pizza.
Yeah, that was in Australia. They do have kangaroo as a delicacy in certain places, much like we had camel
Oh, yeah.
in Tunisia.
In Tunisia, dromedary steak, which was chewy, to say
Very
the
tough.
least.
It's not like a prime rib, it wasn't.
No. And the bat, I don't think that looked too appetizing either, I'm afraid.
I would be scared to eat a bat because I feel like I'd get bubonic plague.
Totally. Yeah, but I guess when you're so desperate, like, again, that's part of where Coach Ben is at this moment. He's just like, how did my life get to this? Like, this is, he's actually sort of second guessing his reality. And that then gives Mari this opportunity to talk about an experience from her childhood.
Right. She talks about she has a cousin who was 4 months old who had brain cancer. And so she had to see her die. She was with her.
She was saying there that there's two versions of reality, right? There's this kind of day-to-day reality that we're all living on, and then there's this like darker presence that's always there and touches upon you at different times. I thought it was really interesting the way that was kind of underlined, the two versions of reality, and this is actually a really great scene for the actress who plays Mari.
I was going to say, I like the fact that I felt like this was finally, we're getting some depth to her role, because before that she's always just like says
she's a brat. She's a brat.
She's kind of bratty. We know she's not necessarily the most clever.
She's not the sharpest crayon in the box.
I mean, I like her. Don't get me wrong.
I do too. Yeah.
But I think the character is just, it's a little like, can be a little annoying at times. Right. Like, God, you're a brat.
So it was interesting though, because there is this rumor out there, or this kind of theory, which we were talking about the way that this season is shot. Specifically, the teen timeline out in the wilderness has this sort of like golden warm hue to it that's a little unnatural, because
I did notice that. It always looks like they're filming at the golden hour.
Yeah.
Because it's all very
golden hour 24 hours a day in the wilderness.
Very...
because the first season was also the summer, right? They crashed in like end of May or early June or whatever. So it should look the same, but it doesn't. And so people are theorizing that maybe this is all like some other existence. They're all kind of dreaming this up for it to be looking that nice and pleasant and everything's perfect. They've got all these rabbits and these ducks walking around and all these beautiful huts.
Those beautiful huts.
Right.
Very chic.
They
look like some glamping vacation.
It's like the ultimate glamping.
Ibiza.
It is. It's I think, was it Sophie Thatcher? There was a video that came out where it showed all of the actors going to set for the first day and seeing all of these huts, and they take a tour into each of them, and they're all kitted out like crazy.
Is it like I Dream of Jeannie's bottle on the inside? Like
there's cushions, there's all this stuff. And I think it was Sophie Thatcher said, oh yeah, this is like Coachella.
Oh, that's funny.
You know what I mean? So maybe there's something to that. Maybe we're going to find out like at episode 8 that it all, that filter goes away and we're in the reality and they've got nothing.
I mean, it looks like they're sustaining themselves pretty well now at this point. Well, we mentioned it the last podcast about the book, too. We had seen the book about ancient
ways of building
structures.
So
where did that come from? Was that really in the shed or
could
the
have
cabin?
Been, I suppose.
But, and would it have been saved?
Well, I kind of rewatched that segment where they were talking about, it was Van talking about the history of the Yellowjackets, and they did mention how, I guess, they kept the fire burning in the cabin for 12 days because they were so cold, and then that's when the spring started to come. So maybe there was opportunity for them to go back and get stuff. Yeah. Anyway, back to the
story.
Back to the cave.
Back to the cave.
Afterwards, they've sprayed each other with bear spray, and they've had this moment, this kind of tender moment, actually. And then Mari says to Coach Ben, what's your plan here? What are you gonna do with me? You can tell he's actually like a really nice guy. So
you see he has a knife though. You see the knife, and then you're thinking
it's very menacing.
Yeah, is he gonna kill her? Like,
I knew he wasn't gonna kill
knife.
Her. I knew he wasn't gonna do it.
Then he cuts her knots on her and tells her to go back. I mean, that is to me just the biggest mistake. But anyway, we'll all find out more later, won't we? Not a good choice.
I mean, here is this character who doesn't allow himself to go where all those other girls are going. He doesn't allow him. And will it be his undoing? Probably. All right. Now, before we continue on with the episode, let's dip into our little sack and find out. I think we have another postcard from the Edge. Would you care to read this for us?
So, we have a comment from TikTok. It's from L'Oreal89.
L'Oreal89.
L'Oreal, love L'Oreal. Yeah. What did y'all think about when the actress who plays Ty said that we're going to find out? We've been and seeing dark Ty a lot more than we originally thought we were during the show. Ooh, that's kind of menacing, isn't it?
I didn't see the interview that L'Oreal is referring to.
I didn't see that either, but
it is interesting because we were just kind of talking about how in the previous 2 episodes, it seemed like Taissa was doing pretty well. She was sleeping.
Oh, she looked like super happy.
Yeah.
And the character, normally in the last 2 episodes, there's a lot of tension going on, right? There's a lot of drama.
Super stressed, super tense.
So she seems very happy-go-lucky right now.
However, there are some moments that are a little unhinged, like in I don't know if it was the last episode where she goes back to the restaurant to pay the tab, and she says, "Oh, yeah, sorry, my wife has cancer, and she wasn't feeling well." I was like, "Your wife? She's not even divorced from Simone!"
Yeah, I mean, she could have just been saying that to just make it, she needed an excuse. Why did they jump ship and not pay the bill?
Yeah, it was a little wild. But, obviously in this particular episode, Taissa gets dark. Doesn't she?
Oh, she gets dark now, but it sets the stage with Van. We've got Van at the doctor,
right,
getting her blood work done. And we all saw this one coming. The doctor says, "Oh, your cancer's..." She didn't say it's in full remission, but it's kind of like stopped progressing.
Stop metastasizing.
And so they're doing some further blood tests. But so they give Van this good news.
There's this look on Van's face, very, questioning. She's like, And
so that's that direct tie-in, obviously, to what Lottie had said at the end of season 2 about they gave something to the spirit, and that
it
you'll
shows
see.
It shows Natalie that the wilderness is happy with the choice, and you will see.
You will see. It's going to do something for you.
But now I have a question, because here we have Van potentially recovering from her cancer based off of what we thought was that sacrifice of Natalie. But then in this episode, we have the other reveal from Ty to Van that the server from the restaurant had a heart attack and he died. And so she takes that as the direct sacrifice for Van.
I mean, I'm going to say this. Maybe it's not so black and white.
Right.
It just doesn't
it's
matter.
Hungry. The wilderness is hungry.
You keep feeding it. Just keep feeding.
Yeah. And I think that's what kind of spirals Ty into this moment in the kitchen where she says, "Oh, you don't see it? You don't see it?" She's so excited to have Van back kind of in her life. You can tell she's looking great. She's laughing. She's smiling. And so she then says to Van, "This is what's going on here. We have it back, and it needs the sacrifice. Don't you see it happening?" She even says the chant again, right?
She says that. I have it written down.
We hear the wilderness.
We hear the wilderness, and it hears us.
Now, I think this is interesting because Ty was always sort of the non-believer in season 1, right? When Van was the one who was looking to Lottie and seeing some value, Ty was holding back. Like there's that scene in episode 10 of the first season where they're in the attic. And I think Van even says to Ty, "Is this going to be a problem if you don't buy into this?" Right? But I do think that Ty kind of has warmed up to it a little bit in season 2. And now here she is fully embracing it. Obviously, she fully had embraced it in the adult timeline in season 1 because she had the altar where other Ty had put the
right. So maybe that's what they mean though when they're saying about the other Ty taking over.
Yeah.
Maybe this is other Ty.
Right.
Like, who knows,
right?
Could it be? Maybe that's what they mean.
Yeah.
All will be revealed, I guess.
So we have another scene with them later on where they're casually sitting on the couch watching TV. And it's so sweet, again, to see them enjoying each other. But then...
Well, they're watching... This is what was fun. They're watching vintage Pee-wee's Playhouse. And it's obviously taped off the television, too.
Right.
Because
it's much like you and I over the past couple weeks where we've been looking at old VHS tapes to sort of convert for some family functions. And you're seeing all the commercials and everything from back in the day. And so they're watching this. And what do they discover?
Well, they discover what's so crazy. There's this commercial for this ice cream parlor called Ozzies on Route whatever, I don't know, 38.
Now, Ozzies right off the bat reminds me of Farrell's, right? Ice cream parlor.
It's kind of like a Farrell's. It's like a place that's got like all like, they start talking about all the different flavors of ice cream. But then what's really crazy is in the commercial, you see this man who looks like the guy without the eyes, but he's got like they're almost like
it's like cartoon eyes. It's almost like, dare I say, Pee-wee's Playhouse in a way, right?
Yeah.
How it's like, so now I have a question about that, because if this were real, if this commercial were real and she really saw the man with no eyes, I mean, come on, would you really be selling ice cream with this scary man with his eyes bulging out? It doesn't seem to make sense.
Well, I don't know, but here's the crazy thing. Are you ready for this? I was going to place an order with Ozzies ice cream.
What do you mean?
Well, just have a listen. I'll play a little.
Homemade ice cream brings a fine sweets and treats to the greater Piscataway community since 1981. Hello? Yeah, this is Ozzies, the homemade ice cream place out in Route 9. As of now, our scoops are broken, our pie plate's cracked, and our doors have closed for the last time.
Oh.
34 years.
34 years.
If you reach us during our regular business hours, we're sorry we weren't able to chat. We're likely scooping out eye-popping delights.
Eye-popping delights.
Come on down for a sample of this week's dizzying array of delectable music, including
Fudge, honey.
It keeps going,
You know
too.
what's funny
It goes
is
on
that-
for 2 minutes, so we could give the number out.
You know what I still have here is I still have in my phone. They did this same kind of thing last
Yeah,
season.
they did
remember?
the same thing.
With Sunshine Honey, which was the company. Let me see if I have it here.
We'll provide the phone number, but just so you know, this is from the commercial.
Proudly located at the former site
it's
of
Lottie.
Green Pine in majestic northern.
Same kind of noise.
Do you ever wonder where you are? Are you somewhere new?
Are you somewhere?
I didn't see that. I did not see the phone number. Was that in the commercial?
Well,
Just-
the phone number was on the it was like I think it was on the house or whatever,
Oh my
or on the
gosh.
commercial. So the number is there. We'll provide the number
I
for you.
love it.
But it's 2 minutes, and I don't know. There could be some clues on there.
Oh, we'll
too.
have to listen to
So
it
we're gonna
more
really have to listen
intensely.
succinctly, or maybe you can add it on.
I
here.
think it's really interesting that they do this kind of like.
I love this.
It's like, in-world extra layers that are outside of the actual program you're watching. It's
No, I mean,
fascinating.
I gave it the analogy before when they did this last time. Like, it feels like when you would buy records and you would buy the limited edition 12-inch single,
Yes,
or giving something to the fans
Right.
to attach to that is beyond the regular product.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really smart because
So what do you think it
does-
means?
I don't know, but
Because-
obviously all those people on Reddit are going to go crazy and try to like make
But
up some
seriously, because
conspiracy
in that
theories.
moment, they're watching the commercial, and this man with no eyes that is haunted Ty. She even says, "Oh gosh, I was scared of this when I was a child," and then she asks Van, "Did you see it?" And Van says, "Yeah, I saw it," but she kind of
Maybe she's not seeing the same thing.
Right.
But then she's like adamant. She's like, we got to go now. So
Right now.
Yeah, we're
Right
going.
now.
We're going now. So then they take off in the car. And this is very much like you and I going to explore some of these weird places that we've
we
looked
love
at
to
in the
explore,
past.
abandoned places.
Yeah,
as
so-
you do.
They went to the place.
Ice cream parlor
And it's
on Route 9.
obviously all like the
It
metal
reminded
awnings
me
are.
of when we went to Santa's
decrepit.
Village. Do you remember?
Totally.
That was in Santa's Village is in Sky Forest, California. It's kind of near Big Bear Lake Arrowhead, but it's now reopened. But we visited several years ago. At least
There was like 10
15
years. It
years
wasn't.
ago.
It was like closed for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So it had this existing amusement park element to it.
Yeah.
It had some rides and some weird like
but it was
gingerbread
all,
houses.
like, rotting and rusty.
And there's like rat poop inside.
everywhere, and the paint was crumbling. Anyway, we just kind of
Yeah, we just kind of walked in and walked around and took pictures.
That
and,
was very that scene when
Yeah.
they go to the old ice cream parlor. Now they hear a lot of these same noises that we just heard in those phone calls, and it's very much like a horror film. I think
Yeah.
it really has that feel to it. And then they see a wolf.
Oh, that's right. And it has like I don't know. It might be like a bunny or something in
Yeah.
its mouth.
Yeah, some
But
sort of
it's
rodent.
it's that wolf again. I think there's a really good kind of counterpoint to this too, because obviously Van was attacked by a wolf,
Right.
right? So it's almost like the wilderness is
Do you
giving a sign.
think, that the wolf is giving the sign that, wait a minute here, you're prolonging the life of this person here. I'm going to need something else.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
I mean, obviously, Ty is haunted by the wolf, right? Because she feels guilty from that experience. When she was sleepwalking as a child out there in the wilderness, she fell asleep up in the tree. And that's when Van was attacked by the wolf.
Yeah.
And so that's why in season 1, you would see the wolf even before that happened. It was a foreshadowing that she feels this guilt.
Didn't she, though, also at the same time when that happened, didn't she see the man with no eyes too at that same time?
Yes.
I think so.
At the time
so when she
when
saw hint.
Yeah, that when it was the
pretty
the
sure.
press conference, right?
Yeah.
For her Senate candidacy, I think that he was there as well.
Yeah.
That's going to be really interesting. I'm really curious to see what this all means. And I'm assuming we're finally going to get that resolved because this has been one of the long-standing questions of the series so far. So interesting, very intriguing. Really enjoy seeing Tawny Cypress. She looks fantastic.
Oh,
this
I
season.
love Tawny Cypress.
Lauren Ambrose.
Love Lauren Ambrose.
So
too.
I'm enjoying. This is like the dynamic duo of this season, kind of like the Misty and the Natalie of season
And in
1.
a way, they're probably more of the light relief right now. I mean, if that's
Which is funny because Ty
Yeah.
was always very
yeah, because
intense
everybody
before.
else's situation is very dramatic, especially in this episode. It's like, ugh, at least in the adult timeline.
Yes, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Shauna's house guest.
Oh, yeah.
Lottie Matthews.
Yeah, so this was really very fun to see again the morning after
The morning after.
the party, and Lottie's coming down.
Lottie says, I'm too busy for pancakes.
Yeah, I
and by
can't-
the way, I wouldn't put those in my body.
I wouldn't
anyway.
put that lard in my body.
Shauna says, well, why don't we go talk? Why don't we go somewhere and talk? And she's, oh, I'm too busy for that. I'm too busy for that. Now, she fails to tell Shauna that she's made previous arrangements to meet up with Callie later on.
Right, and
where-
Callie is
where do
not
they take
saying
her?
anything
Oh, yeah,
to Mom.
Callie's not saying a word, right?
She's not saying a word.
So where do they go, Doug?
Well, they go to the mall, of course.
Oh.
And so I love, them shopping.
She's flipping through the clothes, and you can see Callie's kind of watching her. She
She's
says,
like the mother she hasn't had.
right,
you know?
she is definitely the fun aunt. The fun
aunt,
right?
the groovy aunt.
So Callie says to Lottie, she says, wow, you sure like to shop.
You sure like that?
And then Lottie says, you could say that. and I would say Simone Kessel looks fantastic in anything she wears. It's always very like dramatic and, has a lot of flair to it. And then she picks out this dress.
Yeah, this really like provocative red dress.
Yeah, that's a little too old for Callie, I'd say. But she doesn't just tell Callie to go try it in the dressing room.
Oh, she basically shoves it kind of like in her bag and then tells her which exits to go to.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to be there.
Right.
And you just walk out with it. So it's like, of course,
She is a bad influence.
She's a
on
bad
Callie.
influence, but I was going to say, didn't you have friends like that when you were growing up? Because I had a couple of
I
them.
don't know if I had friends, but I mean, I know I had to resort to shoplifting once because I had a He-Man toy and its head stopped working because it was like a spray bottle. It was a Cobra. And when you got water in there, the spring would get rusty and so it would like stick. So the toy was useless. I was too good of a person to go steal the entire toy.
You just stole the other parts so
I
nobody
just
could
stole the
ever
head.
use it
Yeah,
again.
exactly. Yeah, I just opened up the package. And
What's
said, yeah, what
How
the
noble
hell?
of you.
Yeah, what the?
Well, I only stole a Milky Way bar. That's about
What?
it. When I was about 5 or 6. and I
That's
I felt very guilty. But I did have a friend in high school who I used to go to the mall with her. And she was a big old goth. And I was always so shocked because she would have been like the Lottie. She would just walk in to like, say the Broadway or one of these stores. And then she'd walk out like with a giant Felix the Cat doll.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody would say anything to her. Like she would never get caught because she kind of had an angelic face, even though
Okay.
she was a goth girl.
Well,
But she was tiny. And,
I wonder
she'd get away
if
with
back
it.
in the day, because if you remember, even season 1, the Lottie character was known to shoplift at
Yeah, she mentioned it.
TJ Maxx,
Yeah.
right? So this is a continuation, a through line of that character. That's very clever. Now, of course, they go home afterwards.
Yeah. And
And
then,
they prepare a special meal.
special meal for Shauna. And this is what really like just tugged at my heartstrings because the moment that they showed it, it's Lottie and Callie singing, Mama Cass Elliot singing, It's Getting Better, which is like, I love Mama Cass Elliot. I'm a
my
big
gosh.
Mamas and Papas fan,
Yeah.
but I'm also a huge fan of like all her solo stuff.
It's
and
ironic that this came up
It's-
in this episode because you were just watching Mama Cass literally like 2 days ago.
Well, I'm always watching Mama Cass, probably on YouTube. But there's always
not-
like,
sometimes you go months without watching
yeah,
Mama
it's true.
Cass.
I go
and
down
just,
I
you
go
know,
down a wormhole. Like I went on a Mama Cass
I'm
wormhole,
telling
and then I
you,
don't know.
The Yellowjackets writers are kind of in our head this episode, wouldn't you say?
Well, they are
There's
because
another reference.
There's another reference.
We'll
which
get to
was-
it. We'll
yeah,
get to
we'll
it.
get
We'll
there.
to it.
It's crazy.
Let's talk about this scene. I actually would say that this is probably, in my mind, the best scene of the episode. Shauna comes in. She sees them making this dinner. Lottie's very You know, she's kind of seductive in the way she speaks, right? She's entrancing you. And she says, we've cooked this beautiful meal. She mentions what it is. I can't remember. And she says, we're doing this because we want to repay your hospitality for letting me stay here. And then she takes a bite of whatever it is. And she sees around Callie's neck is the heart necklace. Jackie's heart necklace.
Yeah, that was kind of scary.
It was scary. Immediately, Shauna, it's like the hackles raise, and she's like, oh my God, take that off. This is the piece of jewelry that is used almost like a, I don't know, badge of honor and given to the person who is going to be killed by the Yellowjackets out there in the wilderness. We saw this in the card draw. It is given to Natalie. And we see it in that first scene in episode 1. It is around the neck of the pit girl. So immediately she asks, where did you get this?
Yeah, where did you get this? And she's angry.
And Lottie coolly says, I gave it to her. Oh! And then Shauna's like, how do you even have it? Because, you know, we have to be honest here. That was around somebody's neck at the bottom of a pit at some point.
Yeah.
We don't exactly know when that scene is exactly.
Well, I'm sure we're going to find out later.
Was it the last kill before they left? I don't know. But at any rate, Lottie had to have taken that necklace at some point, and she's been holding onto it all these years.
Well, she says something like, it feels right. And
it feels right to give it to Callie.
Yeah, which is really
That's crazy. Because that's marking her for death, basically. That's what Shauna thinks in her head.
Yeah.
Right? So she says, take that thing off right away, or she rips it off.
She rips it off, and I think she tells Lottie to get the fuck out of the house.
Yeah.
That's what she gets. Really angry.
Yeah.
And
Get
it's like,
out now. This is the strongest we've seen Shauna reacting probably in adult timeline. We've seen her do some pretty crazy stuff, but this moment is just absolutely electric, and it's crazy to see Lottie, how she, in her mind, what is going on?
I was going to say this too. And on this particular day, obviously, Shauna is having a lot of drama going down.
Yes.
Actually, before that,
Shauna
was out with Misty because Misty wanted to hang out and, know that her friendship was more than transactional.
She's trying to prove in a way to Walter, right, who's saying that your friends only want you when they need something.
Yeah.
Trying to prove in a way to him and to herself that it's more than that, right? So she goes to Shauna and she says, oh, Shauna, I did everything you said last night. I really watched what Lottie was doing with Callie. And Shauna's like, you did no such thing. They were totally drunk. They were, who knows what they got up to. I came home and they were braiding each other's hair, whatever. So she's pissed off, but Misty is trying to get into her good graces or, try to do something nice for her. So she invites her to a cafe. And then she says, oh, I'll tag along when you need to do your errands. I can help you buy a gift basket for
they're going to buy a gift basket for those guys who Shauna dissed last week with. Yeah. But then there's also this weird thing. Doesn't Shauna say like, oh, I've got a podiatry appointment. So it all seems like something else is
like
going on.
She's got something else to do, and we never get there.
Yeah.
But to me, this reminded me of Knots Landing, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you remember in the episode The Lie, when Laura is going to go out to her midday bar crawl?
Oh, yeah.
But she forgot that she had plans with Val. And so Val asked, like, well, where are you going all dressed up like that? And she said, oh, I have a dentist appointment.
Yeah, I've got a dental. I got a dental appointment.
Wearing this like amazing red dress, and you're going to the dentist. Okay, this was very much that, and I think it was really interesting because this pairing of Misty and Shauna, to me, it just felt off from the get-go. Like this, they don't have the camaraderie that even Misty had with Natalie. Natalie is, she lets it all hang out. She can brawl with Misty. She can get in there. But Shauna is just like, she's not into it. And you can even see in the way that the cafe scene is shot, it's very like straight on shots. It's very confrontational. Shauna was not wanting to partake in any of this stuff with Misty, and yet they still go off in a car to do their errands, right?
Now, and then there was a funny line, Misty's got the window open.
Yes.
And she says something like,
Shauna says, can you please close the window?
Can you close the window? And she says something like, oh, it feels like Thelma and Louise, which was also a little bit of it was foreshadowing.
It was foreshadowing. In the end, I think it's foreshadowing, but to Shauna, I think she saw that as what ended up happening, which was they start driving and the car brakes go out. That's the title of the episode.
Dems the brakes.
The car is uncontrollable. They go into a park. They almost run over.
Yeah, they almost run over children. They're going through like that little kid's playground or something like that. And then finally she pulls the brake and the car stops. And then she completely unloads on Misty and just basically says, "You planned all this. I don't, you've this," and she just goes through.
She lists everything that she's done,
everything she's ever done,
how insane she is. She actually says to her,
"I felt bad for Misty."
She says, "You're insane." And then Misty says,
well, then, and she accuses Misty at the end, of course, of like, and you probably left that phone for me, da 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 da. So it's like
that was interesting because we had assumed that the person on the other end of the phone, even though we didn't see it, we assumed that manager did describe who picked up the phone. But clearly Shauna still doesn't know.
Right. She does not know. So that scene from last week doesn't really. I mean, well, let's put it this way.
Continues.
I guess you could just say, like, what if it's a blonde person, right?
True.
You say it's blonde.
True.
A blonde woman. Well, it could be Misty, right? And I guess I assume that when we see the Hilary Swank character, she will probably have blondish hair. But it was just kind of a really stressful moment. I felt very terrible for Misty, even though, yes, she's done terrible things.
We always say this.
But
she's the murderer, but we feel sorry for her.
Yeah, but she just wants a true friend, and this is what it's always been for her.
Right, and here we are again at the end of this episode. Basically, she is officially alone again, to the point where she goes back to her house. She finds the picture from the high school reunion of the four of them looking fantastic. She smashes the frame and she takes the photo and she burns it.
Yeah, throws it in the fireplace, which I was almost thinking that might be maybe a little bit of that witchy stuff too, because again, we keep having the fire. You have like the week before you had Thaisa threw the matches from the restaurant into the fire.
Right.
So now we have Misty throwing the picture in the fire of her friends. It's almost like an offering.
I definitely think that the fire is a huge thing. We'll get to that in a little bit. Before we do though, I did want to mention in that scene where they're in the car and they stop in the park, it's so tumultuous and scary. And at the very end, what does Misty say? Oh, my Lord and Taylor.
My Lord and Taylor. That's the weirdest thing.
Once again, writers are in her head.
We've been talking. I've known you for over 21 years. And since I met you, you're always like, oh, my Lord and Taylor. And like, so it's just kind of a catchphrase around here. Yeah, even though Lord and Taylor is not even in existence anymore.
If you don't know, if you're the younger generation, Lord and Taylor was a department store, not unlike, say, like a Macy's or whatever. I don't know if it was all
the other one that I say, though, too, they better not say it next time, is, oh, my crab. Which is like there's a restaurant in Koreatown called Oh My Crab.
Oh, so good. So good. Okay, so anyway, again, sadly, Misty is on her own. And Misty. Shauna has had a really bad day that ends with the altercation with Lottie where she tells her to leave. Now, I would say at this point, Shauna is definitely emerging in this season 3 as like the real main character of this series in both timelines. I mean, she always kind of has been in a way, but really this season. And so now when we go back to the teen timeline, we have her writing in her journal, and then Melissa comes in to say hi. And I was waiting for when we're going to get a pickup of this. It took almost half the episode, right?
And of course, I think that she says something really sarcastic. She says something like, oh, you're not going to be boring, are you? Or something like that. Is that what she said?
Yeah. And then Melissa, who's like done her hair, put her little braids in her hair, kind of like a Alanis Morissette vibe. She then leaves feeling dejected. And then Shauna says, oh no, you can stay. You can stay.
And then, of course, they start making out again, don't they?
Almost.
Well, almost. They're getting right to that point.
Because then...
Plot point.
Mari comes back.
Mari comes back.
Oh, they can hear it in the background. Everybody's excited because Mari's back. And I don't know if you noticed, in that moment, there's actually another, like, more evidence that, like, somebody's watching them. Like, goes back like this. And again, we've seen that in every season. So again, I don't know what that is.
It could just be the wilderness watching them in general.
Right.
You know, like something.
What are they up to today?
The
wilderness says.
The spirit is watching you.
So what are they up to, Doug? Well,
they guess that what's ended up happening is so they start questioning Mari.
And at first you think that she's actually going to keep the secret.
Yeah, it sounds like she's going to try to keep the secret. But
Ben and her had some sort of like nice little moment where they came to terms with their predicament.
Yeah. She does reveal for the first time, which is obviously going to become something later, that she fell into a pit.
Yes.
And then she said she dislocated her leg, which we know was true,
Yeah.
but that she was able to put it back. And then they were like,
get out of the pit.
How did you get out of there? Because
Yeah.
also the leg is just still looking pretty bad.
It's looking terrible.
It's not good. So they know pretty much immediately
well, Natalie
that.
right away,
Yeah.
she can tell, and she's worried. And then she eventually has to come clean. She says that Coach Scott found her and took her back to the place he's been staying in, a cave.
Yeah.
And immediately Shauna's like enraged. And then I think because they're all, again, assuming that he burnt down the cabin. And then I think Misty says something like, finally she defends him.
Yeah, Misty defends him. And you can see Natalie is kind of a little like trying not to go.
Because Shauna wants to leave right away.
Yeah. Now, I was going to say one of the things that I kept noticing about Shauna in this episode, and generally speaking, is she is always making these really quick decisions that aren't necessarily well thought out. She's very impulsive.
She's
and
the
I feel like
queen of impulsive.
Yeah, so she doesn't think about these things. She just is like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And she goes, and it's
and
like,
I think that threatens Natalie in this scene, partly because Natalie knows really where Coach Ben is, but also because she's usurping her Antler Queen status by getting the rest of the group to join her in this hunt.
Yeah.
Before they leave, though, there is a little moment with Akila and Lottie. So in the last episode, Lottie was trying to get into Travis's head. She's pushing the magic mushrooms on him, and he's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And he then says, oh, the wilderness wants to speak to her, Akila, because she's has this wonderful relationship with the animals. And I guess my question to you is, do you think that he really believed that, or he saw that, he sensed that, or is he just trying to get Lottie off of his back?
I feel like he's trying to get Lottie off his back.
I think so too, because in this episode also, you can kind of see him in the background like...
I don't remember. Did he actually go to the cave too, or no?
I think this is, again, there's a moment sometimes where you have to bend the truth as a writer, or you bend the reality. Because come on, where was Travis during this? Let's be honest. And why wouldn't Travis?
Why wouldn't he go? I mean, you would think he'd probably be worried about Natalie.
Yeah.
So it is a little weird.
It was a little weird. But anyway, in terms of this particular storyline, Akila wants nothing from Lottie. She's just like, nope, I'm not interested. I don't want to take the mushrooms. I don't want to connect with the wilderness. But what's then weird is that she kind of changes her tune a little bit later on, don't you think? When she's in the cave. Oh. Suddenly she's like, let's get him. And like,
she's on the team when she gets in the cave.
Yeah, it was interesting. Let's talk about that, right? Let's talk
All
about...
right, so the cave scene was actually really I feel like the episode itself was like 3/4 of it was a straight up traditional Yellowjackets episode, and then the last quarter it's like off the rails and just
was
hyper
all of that?
Psychedelic, and like what I'd like to see it again. I need to watch this again.
This would be the first episode from this season that we absolutely need to watch again to just kind of grasp what the heck is going on.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing. We want to get this out quick. So, we don't want to like watch it 3 times before we do the podcast.
Right. So they head on out in this procession.
Oh, it's like a medieval like procession where they're going to come lynch everybody.
And it's really spooky.
Yeah, it's really like nighttime.
And I think it was interesting because at one point they're like, oh, is Mari really telling the truth? Is she not revealing where this cave is? And Shauna has to rely on Mari now after she's been treating her like dirt the last couple episodes, right? Now she has to turn around and rely on her to find Coach Ben so that she can get her agenda taken care of. They eventually do find the cave. The other thing that's interesting in this moment, we have these extra jackets who've now been promoted, Britt and Robin. They're in the background. Again, they don't really get to say anything. And it kind of was a missed opportunity, I think, to introduce them here, because once they get into the cave, there are 2 paths, because I guess Coach Scott has discovered, he knows they're going to be coming for him.
So he's boarded up one whole section.
Yeah. So they have to kind of go one of 2 ways to try to find him. And so who breaks off? It's
Akila, Van and Shauna go one direction.
And this is like the Goonies. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
this
total
is
Goonies.
The Goonies.
That's like first thing I wrote down when I saw that. I was like, this is the Goonies.
Right. It's a bunch of
a little
young
older,
kids, a little older, right? And they're in this cave and they're like looking around and investigating. And I think it's interesting that this episode has like a lot of film references. I did want to mention one from the previous episodes too that I noticed, which was every time they'd be out in the woods, they would hear like screaming in the distance, right? So one time it's Travis, another time obviously it's Mari. That to me was a direct homage to the Blair Witch Project, was a huge horror film in the 90s. It was the late 90s, so it would have been after they got back, but still that's what that felt like, because it's that always that it's the fear of the unknown. Like you can't see what happened, but you know it was something terrible because you hear this like horrible wailing.
Screech.
Yeah. All right, so back in the cave.
So back in the cave, what ends up getting really weird is that the girls are together, and then I think Shauna loses some of her light.
Well, right,
and
they're
it's
in a
like
part of the cave where it's like dripping
it's
wet,
wet,
and it's getting really like spooky, and it's like small spaces.
and then we start seeing the flame starts like jumping up, like it's like the spirit.
Flame.
The spirit is taking the flame, and then suddenly one has disappeared, and then another one has disappeared, and then what is it? Van is left there on her own, and then she sees this doorway, and it's getting real psychedelic
yeah,
here.
it's getting really psychedelic, and these
feels
shots,
like Alice in Wonderland.
It
or
totally
something.
does, and I think these shots are in the intro, the theme intro, which I think this episode we saw some new shots entered into there as well. A lot of the stuff from this sequence ends up in the intro. She sees the door, she goes through the door.
Oh yeah, and it's like time travel. She's at the cabin, but it's like when Cabin Daddy is living there, so it's all like everything looks kind of newish.
Yeah,
but it's the cabin, and the fire is in the fireplace.
She's on a rocking chair or something.
Yeah, she's on a rocker.
But
and then
it turns to it's the plane seat, or at least the belt from the plane.
Well, the seat belt is on her, and then you see some fire, like an ember goes onto the carpet.
And isn't it that
So then all of a sudden it's like all engulfed.
But then
in
there's
flames.
like the Cabin Daddy's arm comes down with that plaid jacket, and then also like a yellow jacket, sleeve from the jacket comes down.
Letterman's jacket.
So she's trapped basically with this burning ember. And I'm telling you, I think that this whole sequence that we have here in the cave, these dreams or fantasies or whatever, to me, it's a direct reference to Nightmare on Elm Street. Okay? Because in that series, do you remember that? I don't know if
remember
you watched
it, totally.
that, but I mean, obviously it's a hugely popular horror film series from the 80s and 90s into the 2000s. And, Freddy Krueger, he basically preys on the individual fears of these people.
And he comes in your dreams.
He comes in your dreams, and then he kills you, right? So using kind of like whatever scares you. So I think for Van, it's fire, right? Because if you remember, when the plane crashed, she was the one that was left behind, stuck there, and it was on fire.
Yep.
And then, was it Jackie who didn't come back to get her? So then someone else had to come back and get her.
And then again, we have the point after she gets attacked by the wolf. Yeah. They try to burn her because they think she's dead, but she's not.
So she's on this faux funeral pyre, and then
and then she's in the cabin.
Right.
When the fire happens, which is kind of like the direct relation.
Totally.
I mean, I guess the other thing though is this: that do you think Van is having all those visions of all three of them, or do you think it's each individual's vision?
It's hard to say because
I think it could be each individual's vision.
I don't know, because to me...
Because Aquila didn't want to speak to the animals. But then when we get Aquila, she's communicating to the llama, which we brought a llama.
We did bring a llama
here.
Now, this is, again, a film reference.
That was so weird.
Don't you think? Because...
It's like Dr. Dolittle.
It's Dr. Dolittle. There's llamas in Dr. Dolittle.
Or the other one, Babe Pig in the City.
Babe Pig in the City came out in the 90s. That was a huge popular movie. And I definitely think that Aquila gives me like Babe vibes. You know what I mean? Like talking to the animals. I think it's very cute, but you can see she doesn't want to do it. And here she's being forced to do it. It was a very weird moment when that llama started talking.
That was very weird.
It was super trippy.
I definitely want to see it again.
But see, this is why I think, I don't know, maybe it is all Van's dreams. All of them.
What about then the Shauna part? Because Shauna has the dream of she's in the lake, right?
Yes.
And then she's seeing her child, the unborn child, which is now looks like it's about 3 years old.
She can't get to it. She can't swim. She can't try
I think it's the fears, as you said.
Right.
And for whatever is going on with them, which does get explained later
Yeah.
that it's
But see, they're
maybe
all
poison
film
gas.
references, right? Because we have the Dr. Dolittle, we have the Nightmare on Elm Street, especially when it comes to the end scene with Ella Purnell as Jackie in the schoolroom.
Well, do you think do you think that Shauna's would be like The Ring? Maybe like The Ring?
Well, Shauna's is Rosemary's Baby.
Oh, that's right, because
That's the music.
It's the Rosemary's Baby
it's the
theme.
complete ripoff
Right.
of Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby, but then this
And maybe
situation
she
is
sees this child that she didn't have as like the demon, right? Because of all the guilt that this poor person, she brought this baby into the ether by sleeping with her best friend's boyfriend. And maybe that's the trauma, is that she couldn't have that baby come to term because of all the lives it would devastate, or
Right,
whoever.
right.
I don't know. But that's what's in this dream. She can't get to the baby, and there's the baby.
Well, I gotta say,
Rosemary's Baby.
They did such a good job of copying the Rosemary's Baby theme. I mean, it was like down to the harpsichord and
it was good.
la la la
Yeah.
la. I mean, it was.
So then it kind of culminates where she gets kind of sucked under the water at the same time that Akilah gets sucked into the ground. And then they all end up at this classroom, which to me, this was like the ultimate Nightmare on Elm Street part. And it's like Lottie is Freddy Krueger all of a sudden, because she's at the front of the classroom. And what does it say on the chalkboard? It's like
I wrote it down partially, but it was like it's
something like the kindest way to lose somebody is through death.
Through death.
Yeah,
It was really weird. And she's dressed like the teacher Lottie, right? She's very like
she's very prim and proper.
It's
Miss
young
Honest
Lottie.
Brooks.
And the weird thing is they had those bracelets, which I wasn't familiar with them, but I looked them up. They're called something like slap wraps or something.
Slap bands or something like
slap
that.
bands, and apparently they were banned at one point by the FDA, like in the 90s, because kids were getting injured by them and getting cut. So like they would cut your
when I watched that, I was trying to think if I certainly I remember those, but I didn't remember them being like metal. Were they metal?
I don't know. Maybe somebody made some out of plastic afterwards or something. But maybe these ones were metal. They had the symbol.
They had the
on
symbol,
them.
a variation of the symbol.
I think
on
that they should be giving those away. As
that should have been at the premiere party.
That's at the premiere party. Everybody's like rocking that.
But here's the thing.
Choker,
to me, that
the
was
little blood
very
choker.
that was very Freddy Krueger. That was very Nightmare on Elm Street, because that's what he would do. He would use these kind of like everyday items or things that were important in people's lives and then murder them with them. And so to me, that being slapped on the arm or slapped on Shauna's neck, that was very clearly a direct correlation to that. But again, what I thought was interesting is that most of the interaction in that part was between Van and Jackie. So that's why all these film references, here we have Van, who is like the resident film buff of the Yellowjackets.
Yeah.
She was the one always telling the stories around the campfire. Later on, she opened up while you were streaming, right? So I don't know, because at the end, when we finally emerge from all this, Coach Ben has found Van and she's passed out.
And he saves
like
the day
dragging her.
again.
He saves the day again, Coach Ben. He wakes her up.
And how do the ladies repay him? How do they repay him?
I don't like it, Doug.
I don't like it.
I don't like it one bit.
They're taking him back to wherever they're
there's
going.
Natalie. And again, I think Natalie feels the pressure to get on board with Shauna, because if she doesn't, she's going to be now in the minority of the rest of the group.
She's no longer going to be the Antler Queen, is she?
Oh, Natalie, I'm not pleased.
Oh, Natalie.
So what do you think's going to happen? What do you think they're going to do with Coach Ben? Obviously, they say they're taking him back to the camp.
I mean, I wonder if eventually they'll eat him, but I don't think they're going to eat him right away in this season. I think it's going to be towards the end of the season.
The way that it's looking, I think they're going to want to torture him.
Yeah, maybe. I think the thing is, maybe they'll do it like what they would do like at a witch trial, where because they don't believe that he didn't burn down the cabin, but like they'll just keep doing something to him until he admits.
What if they eat him limb by limb?
Oh, well, I guess they could do that.
In front of him.
Oh, that's terrible. Well, I guess they could do it. I hope it doesn't get that barbaric, because that would be really gross. I mean, I already cover my eyes half the time anyway. When
I know. Okay,
happens.
I do have another question about this cave, though. So all this craziness, I did think the dream sequences went on a little long. It was kind of crazy. Like you said, it was the last 15 minutes of the show. But it did leave me with a couple questions. Like, there was that door. Was the door real? Does the door go anywhere? Was that just in Van's dream? Because we do see in the trailer for season 3 that Misty goes to a hallway that looks very similar to the one in season 1 in Lottie's vision, right? Of the future, whatever. So is that connected to wherever we are?
In the last episode, Coach Ben found all those supplies.
Yeah.
But what if this was just like a bunker for like this cabin daddy was like a survivalist, and he had a nuclear war bunker.
Yeah, or it's like mining or something.
Yeah,
Who
something.
knows? This is
it's
up in
probably
the wilderness.
something like that was just left there, and he was there on his own.
Obviously, we always
went
saw
crazy.
We saw the steam coming up in the last season out of the trunk or whatever. We know there's some geothermal situations going on there.
I'm gonna bet on a bunker because
Bet on a bunker.
you even find them sometimes in California
So
in
here's
some
the
of these
crazy
old
thing,
houses.
though. If Misty is there, is that bunker out there in the wilderness? Is she now going to go back? Is that what brings them and maybe Callie out there with the necklace?
Maybe.
Because now that Misty is sort of like on her own, right? And we already are seeing.
So you think Callie's going to be the pit girl?
Well, that's what I've always thought that. Now,
Okay.
when Sarah Desjardins thinks it's ridiculous that she could possibly be the pit girl. Now, there have been pictures of Sarah in the wilderness on set, like posing by the plane or whatever as a joke. So who knows? Because it would be really interesting if Misty went out there and then they all have to kind of follow her.
Right.
And they're all fractured. Obviously, Shauna and Lottie are not going to be the only people that are friendly right now are Ty.
I bet
and
you the next
Van.
one who's going to be on board with that idea is going to be like Lottie.
Sure.
We all need to
yeah.
go to the wilderness,
Of course.
to kind of get in touch with it and
Yes.
give it back what it wants.
Yes.
That's probably what
It
will
fits,
happen.
doesn't it? It fits. What
It
did she say?
fits. It fits. It feels right.
It feels right.
Just feels right to
Oh,
me.
my God.
Feels right to me. Only time will tell, though.
Oh
Will.
my gosh.
Hey,
now,
Legs, listen, maybe Coach Ben is still living out
I
there.
really want that.
Wouldn't that be great?
I really, really want that.
We can have him as a middle-aged
Gosh,
guy.
I think it would be great. There was another theory. someone
Middle-aged
said-
daddy with one
someone had
leg.
said that in the funeral for Natalie in episode 1, there was someone in the background, and it looked like they were thinking maybe it was Paul wanting answers for whatever happened to Coach Ben.
Oh, that would
That
be
would
fun.
that would be interesting as well.
Yeah. I guess we should not go on Reddit ever, though.
I know. Yeah,
'Cause
yes.
it'll just be
I
too
know.
much.
It just you just fall down that.
I'm going to
rabbit
let the
hole.
Reddit people stay
Yeah.
with the Reddit.
Yeah,
We'll just
yeah,
stay
yeah.
with us.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty much down.
Do
to
we
the
wrap it
end of
up?
the episode. I mean, was there anything else that we?
Well, we want to talk
talked
about
about
next
that.
week's
We talked
episode,
about
don't we?
Favorite music. We definitely talked about that.
Yeah.
We talked about the most shocking.
Oh, I know
moments.
what we need to talk about. We need to talk about the brow meter.
Oh my gosh, the barometer. Yes.
So on a scale of
Yes, this is our barometer. We're coming in for a landing on this episode to get right down to the lotus point. Find out just how highbrow or lowbrow this episode was. What did you give this episode of Yellowjackets?
Okay, so between a 1 and 5 is how we rate this. 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. I would say for its goofiness, this one is not as highbrow as the last one.
I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah, I
John.
don't know what you're saying.
I don't know what you mean.
I don't know what you're saying. I would probably give this like a 2.85.
Oh gosh, okay, you're breaking away from the quarters. Okay, that's cool. I can roll with it.
I don't
can roll
have
with
to
it.
do 0.75, do I?
Well, I gave it a 2.75, funnily
Okay.
enough. Okay.
Okay, so make sure
and
you mark that down.
I agree. I think that there were elements of this that were actually really nice, like the beginning sequence with Mari and Coach Ben. I really loved those moments to see those actors
If
giving
the
more.
whole thing had been like that, then it would have been very high.
And the scene with Lottie and Shauna and Callie in the kitchen again.
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
It's
just-
not
it
to
gave
say
me
though
chills.
I did enjoy it thoroughly,
Yeah.
and so I'm not disappointed
Right.
at all. It's just that
It's just that those dreams feel much more like a horror film because they're like leaning into that genre of film, or the Goonies. It definitely brings it further away from highbrow.
Yeah.
shall we say. All right, now we are going to talk a little bit about the next episode, but before we do that, we want to remind you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can just ring that little bell there. Also, if you're joining us on Spotify, you can rate our whole podcast. We would love that. 5 stars, of
please,
course.
it helps us very much.
Yes. Leave comments, right? Engagement helps other people find us. So that would be great.
And we really want more people to find us on the Instagrams and on
TikTok.
the
TikTok's been fun, I have to
TikTok's
say.
doing good.
You guys are active over there on the
But
TikTok.
YouTube, it would be
Yeah,
helpful to
yes,
get some more
yes.
views and likes. Okay?
Absolutely, yes. Please come over and watch our whole show. In fact, coming up before even the next episode, the next podcast next week, we are going to be doing, we already recorded it, to be honest, a really deep dive into the extra jackets. This is the Untying the Knot segment that we've promised for the last 4 episodes.
Yeah.
We're finally doing it. It's just so much, it had to be its own episode.
Yeah.
So look for that soon. And then now let's talk about the next episode.
Yeah, the next episode. Well, so looking ahead, we're going to go here. Next
what's
on
next?
Seaview Circle, the Yellowjackets attempt to spin 100 suspicions into proof. See, I told you. Coach Scott has an existential meltdown and wonders if the universe really does hate him. Meanwhile, Jeff embarks on a crusade to make things right energetically.
I think you're right, Doug. I think that it's going to be like a witch trial, right? They're going to be like,
witches.
They're basically going to be asking him all these questions, and he's going to have an answer for everything. And I think they're still going to end up eating him limb by limb, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Well, on that note, stay hungry, friend.
And we will see you then. Back on the sack. Thank you for spending some time with us.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you soon.